Unknown Morning Show. Mandy, we talk about as radio people doing public service,
Yeah, we talk
and
about that a lot.
we do. And I always say, well, weather, but we don't have weather to talk about. Not today, but what we are talking about is chili,
Hey, I like chili.
chili cook-off. One is coming up. Our good friend Blue Monday Daniels has one coming up March 1st at the Park of East Texas on Patton Lane. Otherwise, we can tell folks is known as.
It's like the new East Texas State Fairgrounds. You're going to see the fair office on 64, and then there's a road that kind of tees into 64 Patton Lane. That's where you're going to take your turn and
Yeah.
kind of head to the back across from Dixie Elementary and find some chili cooks.
Oh, and the cooking starts at 8, but when does the tasting start?
11 a.m. And the Cassie chili judging begins at,
1 o'clock.
that's right.
And of course, in all instances, Blue needs you. She needs judges to help out. And I mean, talk about a terrific gig tasting chili.
Yeah, and you don't need any qualifications. They'll teach you how to judge the chili right there at 1 o'clock. So here's the thing you need to know, Chuck.
Yes.
If you'd like to be a judge, and I highly recommend it, it's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Don't go tasting at 11 a.m. You need to have a clear palate if you're going to judge at 1 o'clock.
What she said. So we're probably going to be judging. We may be judging. Stop by, say hello to myself and Mandy Montana. But most importantly, come by and have a terrific time. We want to see you there March 1st, East Texas State Fairgrounds for the chili cook-off.
Okay, here we go.
Test.
Roll music.
Let's roll it.
Welcome to the Unknown Morning Show.
It's the show where we explore radio,
Podcasting,
TV,
gear,
gearheads,
and making money with a hot mic and other stuff too.
This is the Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley. Today on the Unknown Morning Show, our subject in the chair is somebody that we've kind of had on our wish list for a while. Somebody many of you listened to in the 90s and maybe up until 2000, market veteran, programmer, disc jockey, moved on to other things.
Right.
But he's also moved on to something bigger, and I'm not going to tell you what it is because I'm going to let Michael Storm. Hi, Michael.
What's going on, man?
I want you to tell us what is going on in your life at this particular moment.
This particular moment is, hang on, let me get this right here.
Okay.
Oh, here.
What is the big deal you got? Yeah.
Oh, cool.
There you go. The mighty 95.1 Great FM, brand new launched radio station for East Texas. Just got it fired up here. I guess it's been a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Officially, we revealed what we were doing. So been about a year and a half in the works on this thing.
Wow.
But yeah, built it from scratch. It was silent, sitting in a field in Jacksonville with, nothing going on with it. So went through the whole process of paperwork, FCC, brokers,
lawyers,
towers, antennas,
wow,
transmitters, buildings, everything, top to bottom.
All the not fun stuff first.
Yeah, no. Yeah, not at all. That part was long, and you have days you're like, what am I doing?
I can imagine.
So, but yeah, finally got it kicked off officially here a couple of weeks ago, and we're off and running. 95.1 Great FM, back in East Texas. So
I think it really fits a good bill because over Coffee Talk, and Mandy, over the past couple of years, we've talked about oldies radio in particular, 70s, 80s. You can hear your Eagles all the time, but we were talking about, well, why doesn't somebody update it, right?
Yeah, I worked on Sunny 106.5 for a while, and I've been listening to Great FM for the past couple of, weeks maybe.
3 weeks now. Yeah.
And I'm hearing so many songs that I had forgotten that I loved.
right.
That I love so much. I've heard some Billy Joel. Who did I hear this morning that I liked so much? Oh, I heard Stevie Wonder into NSYNC, and I was like,
Right.
wow, that works. It's been an absolute delight to listen to it. I've had so much fun. I feel like I'm like, oh wow, I forgot I loved that song all the time.
My sister-in-law was talking to Rosie, my wife, Rosanna, I want to say about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and said, there's a new radio station in Tyler, 95.1. And of course, Rosanna, knowing, how to keep state secrets, said, oh, really? Because I told her, no, we have had times in the past with format changes or whatever. I said, okay, here's the deal. You cannot tell mom, if you tell mom this is probably going on Facebook, my son-in-law, no. But yeah, right. It fits in that kind of niche to where it's like Goldilocks. It's not too hard. It's not too soft. To me, it rides really, really well.
No, I appreciate it. We did a deep dive. I did a very deep dive for weeks, maybe even months, on music and trying to find the right lane for this thing based on, who's in the market, what's not being played in the market.
Sure.
But, what was at the time when it was out a big hit, but just not getting exposure anymore for all the reasons, they had the Sonny would probably have otherwise played.
Yeah.
They've been gone now a while. So, and then just stuff, quite frankly, I liked. And but I thought would, work as well. So put all that together. It took a while to try to find the right lane and compare and look and see. So we, decided to use like jingles as opposed to like a big voice guy with this thing. Just felt like it was a better fit. And, that's kind of where it's at right now. You're kind of listening to, version 1.0, I guess. All of
That's
it.
fine.
So we'll see how it goes, and there'll be, you're going to change and tweak and update things as you go, of course. But yeah, it's been fun. The music part's the fun part.
Yeah.
Digging into all that stuff, transmitter buildings and antennas, and no, not so much.
Not so much.
But this part's been fun.
I hear some nostalgic songs sometimes where I'm like, oh, I remember listening to that on Mix 107.3 when you were hosting the morning show.
Yes.
Like this morning, I heard Jennifer Page's Crush, which I don't really remember playing on Sunny. It didn't really fit the tone of that station, but it sounds great on Great FM.
Yeah, it's that was a kind of a one hit wonder, but you know what, it fits, it works. We're gonna play it.
Yeah.
So, but yes, a lot of it stuff. I played it when it was new.
Yeah.
I'm officially that guy. Like, I remember when it was new.
Yeah.
I told my kid, and I saw them when they came by on a promo tour. That nobody knew who they were.
Yep.
And stuff like that. So she just rolls her eyes, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, that guy now. So, but it's fun. It's fun to kind of revisit some of that and then mix it with some other stuff we used to do, and then a little bit of newer stuff, kind of cherry picking new stuff. So
I've been hearing Teddy Swims and Benson Boone, and it fits so well.
Right.
With the mix of it all.
Right. Trying to find that lane, with them. So that's been the fun part.
Yeah.
Just trying to dial that in.
One of the things we've talked about, and I was talking to a friend of mine at coffee, some months ago, and we kicked around the concept of, because he said, well, you're the country guy. What about like a Jack FM country thing? And so that's been like rolling in my head for a while. And I just thought, yeah, let's start in the 90s. Let's start in the late 90s, have the meet to like 2000, and then just start working it from there. Kind of when I programmed KKUS, it was kind of like, coal miner's daughter never goes away, but you it's like with your database, you sit there and you examine it a couple, 3, 4 times a year. You move things around and make sure that it doesn't get stale. I got a question though for you. When was the moment, Michael, that you sat there and the light bulb went off and said, I want to own a radio station? How did you get there?
So my last radio job, I got out in 2008. I was working my last one was for Cumulus in Huntsville, Alabama, WZYP, their big top 40 station there.
Okay.
Been around a long time. It's a great station, still is. And my daughter had just turned 3, and things were fine there. I was fine there. I had no issues, wasn't in any trouble for once. But, but just kind of the writing on the wall with the business in general, the industry.
Oh, yeah.
Things and how it's going. And I was just like,
Was it like every November you got worried, that sort of thing? Yeah.
Just never know, man. You just never know. And there's too many really good people not working right now.
Oh, it's horrible to see the cut list. Horrible.
Yeah, it's just terrible. And while I had no issues there personally, it was, you just kind of see the writing, kind of how things trend and move. And I thought, I don't want to bounce my kid all over the country, job to job. And we had a family business in Houston, and they had always kind of bugged me about coming to work in it, which I never really wanted to do. But just with her teetering on starting school and just like, I think maybe it's probably the time to do that. So we moved back to Houston and basically did that. She went all her school career here. I worked in the business, and she graduated, but it was like her senior year, I guess, into her junior year, senior year. We sold that business finally after 60 plus years.
Wow.
Whoa.
My parents, were just, ready to be done, and don't blame them. And
don't want to work no more.
Yeah, it's a manufacturing business, and a lot of oil and gas parts and components, kind of really, boring stuff, I guess, in a way, but necessary stuff.
Pays the bills.
Yes. And it's just, it's its own animal. A lot of equipment, people, big companies dealing with them. It's just a lot. And we just all decided to sell out and move on to other things. So had to do something after that, and gave me a little time to think. But we looked at a lot of things just to do kind of for ourselves. I didn't want any big operation after coming out of that manufacturing business with, 60 some odd or whatever people at times.
Ugh.
I just didn't want to deal with that kind of scope of anymore. I wanted to do something myself. And we looked at a lot of those types of businesses, but I kind of kept coming back around. I'm like, for what I could set this thing, it's like, blah, 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 it's about the same. And I'll probably be better at this than running a laundromat or a car wash or, some other solo type business that wouldn't be as fun. So, looked around all over the country at stations and with the broker, and we looked at a lot of things all over. This wasn't the first necessarily option, but this was out there and kind of just penciling it out. And then with some history here, my wife's from Kilgore. I got some family still up there. And then the growth, that was the big thing too, really, was the growth of the area. Because I was a big stickler about, I need to be somewhere or want to be somewhere that's growing. The market's got some upside to it. There's things happening. And then, East Texas is happening. Tyler's growing like crazy. That
really
Bullard,
is.
that corridor between Jacksonville and
everything's growing together. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can see that trend continuing. I don't see that stopping anytime soon. Who knows, I guess. But, and that's kind of the sweet spot of where we are. So I just felt like, you know what, if we're going to do it, now's the time to do it. So, made the move, and it took a while to do it because it was from scratch.
Yeah.
I could have been on a lot quicker somewhere else because it would have been an existing operation.
So it was basically the frequency, and that's it?
Yes, that's it. It was totally silent, off the air. Well, I guess he had some stuff on it. He was like some satellite or something at like 100 watts, I guess, to keep the permit, you have to keep it on. So he had it on in that respect, but nothing anybody was aware of or paying attention to or whatever, because he was trying to sell it. So, we worked it out and, got it done. And then we had to move it to a different tower and increase the power, which meant new equipment, new antennas, researching all that, buying all that.
Wow.
So it's just a year and a half of a lot. So
it sounds like it.
So here we are. So it's finally fun to now be able to take a breath and can talk about it. Finally.
Yeah. So when did the fun part start happening, Michael?
Probably they're doing the music stuff. I've kind of been doing that on my own anyway, kind of just penciling stuff out through the process while you're waiting on a permit or waiting on a piece of equipment to show up. You're kind of doing some of this simultaneously. But it really got fun when I got the jingles in.
Yeah, they sound good.
They showed up.
They sound great.
Could start like putting them in and mixing them and stuff together. I was like, okay, now it's kind of starting to be real.
Yeah.
Because you can hear that, you hear them singing it, and after it's just been in your head this whole time, and now that made it real. So that part was fun. And then getting the website up and getting the logo done, and you start to see it all come together.
Yeah.
As opposed to just notes on a piece of paper. So that part was fun.
There's something about sitting there and go ahead, Mandee.
No.
I was going to say, there's something about sitting there and let's say you're writing, like building a music clock on a piece of paper or a cocktail napkin, and it becomes real. I love music databases. I love building them. If you ask me what is the best thing you can do in broadcasting, that's it. Everything else I got underneath, but building. If somebody gave me, well, now it used to be you say a bunch of CDs, but now what? a 4 terabyte hard drive of all time country's greatest hits. I said, well, I'll build you something. And if it happened, I'd probably, if they came to me now and said, here, you want to go over there and think about doing that? I'd go, just maybe I would. But I'm sitting in a Heritage News Talk station, and I'm pleased to be able to do so. Especially,
where you're at's a great place.
Especially in these perilous times. I've been lucky. My last 2 radio gigs have been with family operations. Reynolds, I was over at 99.3 doing sports talk there for 3 years, which was fun. We had no ratings. They didn't sell us at all. But, oh, my God, we had fun. We went to work. Brian Houston and I and Reed Kerr, we went to work every day like we were in New York radio. And I had the good fortune of having people that would teach me, because I'd never done this before, and would let me be part of their system. It'd be like, I think Reed said to me, he said, okay, here's the deal. I want you to play kind of a character. Guy's been in music radio about 30 years and maybe occasionally says something a little off kilter. I'm going, yeah, okay. I'll do something. Do that. Okay, pal. I will be your producer guy. But that was just a lot of fun, learning that, I remember when they fired us, Benny, the GM, asked if anybody wanted to add something. And I said, yeah. And I said, most operators would have closed us in 1.5 to 2 years. We went 3 years. So I said, be grateful. We got to learn stuff. So. Buy me a cup of coffee, Mandee.
Yeah.
I've seen that on other podcasts. That's literally...
Yeah, it's like a virtual tip jar. It's really that simple. So you go to the show notes, click Buy Me a Coffee, and then you have an opportunity to support the show in any way you like. Imagine yourself going to coffee with Chuck and myself and saying, hey, I like what you do on the show. I'm going to buy you a cup of coffee. Only all you have to do is click a link. It's that simple.
Right. No, that's cool. That's cool. I've always wanted to do talk, but just never worked out to get into that for whatever reason. I always on the music side. I don't know. I guess people start to see you that way and they never want to consider you as something else.
I had gotten my last 3 jobs because of people either having bad behavior or whatever. And I'm like standing there and, Chuck, do you want to do it? Sure. What do I do? Right. I don't know. When I started doing news at BB, I was the production guy. I'd been there maybe 6-8 months, and we would have our department head meetings. And Paul Gleiser said, "Chuck, you want to do news?" And I was like, "Well, if you jock, you can do news." And I go, "Okay." That's how I approach things, and that's what I tell people that I'm training a person now. I go, "Look, sometimes what we have to do is here's the swimming pool, and there's 9 feet of water, and we're going to throw you in." And that's how it's going to work.
Yeah, you just sometimes have to figure it out.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of that, how did you get started in radio? We kind of went to now, and we oftentimes like to get origin stories out of people, and we haven't had that from you yet. So I'm curious, where did all this begin for you?
I grew up in Houston.
Okay.
So growing up, listening to the radio here, we were very fortunate growing up to have some very, very, very good local stations at the time. John Lander was on 92Q, which is now country and has been for a long time. But again, being old, it's still a top 40 station in my mind, But KRBE, which is still here, and I was lucky enough to work at for a minute, coming back from California. Huge station, still is. I think Paul Christie, Glenn Beck did mornings there for a while.
Wow.
And some others. Now they've had a long time show with Ryan Chase, Rula. They've been there a long time. Mm-hmm. And Stevens and Pruitt were on KLOL. Moby was at 97 Rock. Just growing up listening to just great people, fantastic stations. Even though I run a big country guy, what was that show? Hudson and Harrigan, which I think Stevens and Pruitt used to be Hudson and Harrigan.
Was that Kilt? Was that on Kilt?
Yes, yeah. Kilt, and then KIKK, Kick, had the greatest call letters ever for country. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why they ever left that. Anyway, but just a lot of great local radio in Houston growing up. And just loved it. And I want to do that. So later, after college, or after freshman year of college, playing football with a friend of mine up in West Texas, that didn't work out. We had fun, but didn't work out. Moved back to Houston and went to had no idea how to get into radio, didn't know a soul, knew nothing, no one. and went to a little broadcasting school that used to be a thing for a while, that correspondence, Columbia School of Broadcasting.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the only thing I knew to do. And so I went to that. It was like a 9-month thing. But at the end of it, they introduced me to a guy at Metro Traffic that does a traffic service for all the stations in Houston. So I kind of interned with them for a minute. And he pointed out to me one day at this, like the 70th floor of this building where they were, where every station was. So I drove to every one and then tried to apply for a job. And then what was 97 Rock as a kid, 96.5, it's now Mix. They had changed format to Energy 96.5, like a dance top 40. And they hired me to do promotions. And I started driving the van and hanging up banners and all of that. So, and then I stayed around and I bugged the night guy, Paco Lopez, who's still a good friend. He's been in the business forever. He's fantastic. Got us been all over the country, and started answering phones for him, doing all that stuff at night for the night jock, and was in heaven. Loved it. So I worked during the day, noon to 6 in promotions, and got paid. And then 6 or 7, we'd eat like between 6 and 7. And then from 7 to midnight, I sat in there with him for free.
Yeah.
For a year.
And gained so much experience.
Yes. Tons.
You were in college, right?
Yeah.
Yes. At this point, no. I'd finished at little school and then I was just working. This is all I did. And
But it was like going to
hours a day.
It was like going to college, though, I bet.
Yes.
With
Oh,
Paco.
absolutely. Absolutely. Totally. And did that for a year and a half. And then that station got sold, which is kind of, your first taste of that.
Yep.
And then they sold it and they flipped it to what is now Mix and still is. So there was a big shakeup with people and whatever. And I wanted to get on the air, but at the time you don't get on in Houston.
Right.
But Paco knew some people from Alabama where he had come from. So, and I jumped over and ended up going to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and started doing overnights in a cow pasture, a little cow pasture where this little studio was. I remember going on my interview. We went around town and saw all the fun stuff with Alabama, the college and everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll see the station. And he's like, man, we got to get you back to the airport. And so I took the job and they wouldn't show it. Steve Shannon, who's great. He's been in a lot of places too. He's a morning guy. He's back in Tuscaloosa now doing mornings, him in DC. And they were doing mornings there. And they're very good. Anyway, he was like, I was afraid if you saw the station, you wouldn't take the job because it was in a cow pasture. No joke. And it was definitely a change from Houston and the facilities you would have, in Houston, of course, which was all at every team. So, but I didn't care. I went, did it. I was 21. So, did that for a year and a half, and they changed the format of that station. So it was kind of a little bit of a shakeup. But Steve had since moved to Birmingham, and I was going to go up there and work for him and a group of guys in Birmingham at a station he had moved to. Went up there, got a job to do overnights. And while we were all at lunch, their corporate office had come in and sold or changed the format of that station. Yes.
Wow.
I got fired twice in a day.
Oh, my gosh.
I got, in Alabama and then going up to Birmingham, I was like, man, I'm bad juju.
Only in radio.
Yeah. Twice in a day.
Yes.
So then all those guys were out that day.
Wow.
And then I think Steve and DC ended up going to New Orleans, and then they went on to St. Louis forever. But then, so after that, I came back to Texas looking for a job, came back home, and ended up deciding after a couple of years of doing it, maybe I should go to a little more school, a little more maybe. So I moved to Tyler because I've got family there and my dad, and went to TJC for a while and started working part-time at 107.3. But it was KISS 107.3, not the KISS now. It was like a top 40 station.
Yeah.
And Charlie O'Douglas was the program director. So I started doing weekends there while I went to school, and did that, I think, for maybe a year or more, a couple of years even. And then he left, and some other people all left, but they had since changed the format to Mix. Made it real kind of, softer, or wasn't, tried to soften it up, actually, from being top 40. Well, those guys all left, and I ended up getting that job because I was like the only guy left in the building, and I knew how to print the music log. So because I knew how to print the music log, and everybody else was gone, I just weaseled my way into the program director job.
Okay.
And over time, which was, I always joke, that's the one job where I didn't have anybody telling me anything. You know, later you got real corporatized and you've got this structure above you, very corporate, you know, lots of bosses and cooks in the kitchen. This job, there wasn't a soul. We had no consultant, nobody said a thing.
Wow.
So I just kind of made my own decision to little by little stair step it back to being a top 40, which we did. And we had some different people on the morning that just never worked out. I was doing afternoons. I didn't really want to do mornings at the time. And
who wants to get up at 4 a.m.?
Yeah, I was like,
nobody. That would be the answer.
We went through like 3 different ones and just didn't work out for various reasons. And I was like, you know, we're never going to make any headway here if this just stays a revolving door. So I just finally like, I'm going to do it and I'll get somebody else to do afternoons. That'll be better. So I did that. I think we hired Mick at that point to come in and do afternoons.
Love Mick.
Yes, Mick's the best. And he started doing afternoons and helping out as music director. And then I was doing mornings at that point. So, and from there, we just kind of, you know, started rolling. And we got lucky because we caught an era where the music was really good for our format. We got hot. That was the era that we're, of course, playing on Great FM now. A lot of Hootie and the Blowfish and, you know, Celine Dion, that freaking Titanic was huge. And Alanis Morissette came out. There was just a lot of stuff. Our format got hot that nobody else in town was playing but us. So we had it all to ourselves. And then with, you know, the morning show and the rest of the staff, we had started doing a lot of other things. And it all kind of snowballed, and we did, you know, ended up having a pretty little successful run there for a while.
Well, you had great staff and great promotions. I mean,
yes.
By this,
we found,
when I first started listening to you, it was probably like 96, 97.
Right.
I think you had like maybe Mick might have been doing middays at that point because I didn't get to listen to him much because I was still in school. I'm aging myself. But I think Joey was doing afternoons and Jake was on at night. And Larry was either overnights or on with you in the morning. I can't remember exactly what, but
Larry's situation was the one time I blatantly lied to the boss because corporate had come in at that point. We had been sold. When I started there, it was a family owned the station, Cheney's, great people. Yeah. And they had sold and became this Gulf Star that turned into these other entities and eventually rolled up into what was Clear Channel.
Right.
Anyway, they gave us this automation system we all know. And at some point they said, you got to get rid of the overnight people because we had hired Larry to do overnights. And he started kind of just hanging around with me in the morning. But then when the time came to fire the overnight people, I just lied and said, well, he doesn't do overnights. He just voice tracks that. He's on the morning show.
Yeah.
He does mornings. What are you talking about?
And they bought it. They bought it.
And the GM we had at the time, who was not my original GM, he was a newer guy and he just bought it. He, you know.
Wow.
He bought it.
That is lovely.
Yes, totally lied. And I'm like, Larry hadn't been there that long. I'm like, he's not leaving. We're not doing this. No. Yeah. So I'm like, I just said he didn't do overnights. And I think eventually he did start voice tracking it instead of doing it because that's what we told him. So, I lied through my teeth.
I remember you talking about the new automation system. Did you call it like HAL 9000?
Yeah, we called it, when it first showed up, we all hated it.
Yeah.
We just hated it. And because at times when it was new technology, it was glitchy and it would just go off and it would do things. We just hated it. But yeah, I think we started calling it the HAL 9000 supercomputer.
Yeah.
Whatever. But it just, but anyway, yeah, they changed it up to where you could do a lot of things in advance. And it has its, you know, good parts to it, but it was going to affect people then. And it has.
And it has. Yeah.
Still have. So it's like, well, we got to come up with something here and solve this problem because he was helping me in the morning, which I liked and needed. And it's like, we're not doing that. So I was like, he's on the morning show.
Yeah.
He just bought it. So
I cannot imagine doing mornings solo. That's tough.
yeah, I started out doing that.
I know.
I was doing it for actually a while. And when he came in to do overnights, I finally just was like, he started kind of hanging around and helping me, kind of do things, which was very helpful.
Yeah.
So like selfishly, I did not want to lose that help. So I just said he would, and he was, I say I lied. I kind of lied. He was on the morning show, but he was really doing overnights.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Like it's easy enough to voice track overnights.
Yeah.
Fine. So that's how we sold that. And he's still there.
He is.
Yeah, no, he's great. He's one of my favorite people. So
yeah, mine too. I had an opportunity to office with him for about 6 years at Mix, and he is.
Oh yeah,
he's like an older brother now. Like he's not getting rid of me. He's family. He's good people.
yeah, no, he's a good dude.
Yeah,
He's great.
yeah.
So and then Chuck was next door to me with the whole time I was there.
Yes.
And Amy were in the office next door.
Yep.
So we had lots of fun up there.
It was so fun because the vibe that you guys had was so relaxed. We felt like kind of like the uptight country cousins because we were like, seriously, it was kind of like, for us, it was kind of frustrating, not with you guys, but, we'd have it to where we'd, hit our 15 or 20 share, whatever. And management's answer was, well, what's next? I'm like, and we would just kind of go, oh God, we can only do this, and this. But I loved like just sitting in your office, hanging out, talking to Mick, stuff like that, exchanging old stories. Like Mick would tell like when he and Amy worked at X100 over
I
at
forgot they worked there.
in Mount Pleasant, and the stories. I mean, the most classic one. Did Mick ever tell you about the restroom story there?
I don't know about that one.
They never had. They didn't have restrooms at their radio station, so they had to put on like Led Zeppelin or something like Stairway to Heaven to go across the street to go to the bathroom.
I did that once in Tuscaloosa because everything was on CD, and there was a version of Guns N' Roses. I think it was Civil War. There's a Guns N' Roses version. I want to say it's like 9 minutes or something. And I would do overnights, and I'd put that on, and I'd run down the street to the convenience store.
Yeah.
To get something because it's overnights, and I could fly down there and be back for the song ended because everything was on CD, so you had to be there manually to push the next button.
Yep.
So yeah, we've done that.
Man, that's the trouble with News Talk. I host an hour show 5 to 6. We do the drive at 5, and man, at 4:45. Everything gets emptied out, if you know what I mean, because the worst thing is if you're sitting there, I got to go to the bathroom, because it's 2 and 3 minute increments during a commercial break. And I have the worst feeling ever. And I have like my stopwatch where I'm doing the business, and I'm like, going, yeah, this is crazy, but I don't want to miss a break. I don't want to have somebody say, oh, why did we have dead air? Well, no, don't want that at all.
Mm-mm.
Right.
But news is its own animal.
I should take this moment to thank Chuck because he's the one that hooked me up years ago with Faith Hill tickets and backstage passes. You remember that, Chuck? You gave me the Faith Hill calendar that I kept forever.
Oh, the Faith Hill calendar, yes.
Remember you gave me the calendar right when she first came out?
Oh, yeah. No. You had this major thing. It's kind of like, well, if I could sing and if I was country and if I could move to Nashville, there's a chance for me.
Right. And that calendar came out. And you gave it to me because you knew I had a big crush on Faith Hill.
Yeah.
And I left it on one particular month for like, I think 3 years or something. And it's probably still in that office, which I hear it's like a tomb up there. So
it is.
Would be fun to go roam around. But anyway, yeah. So Chuck gave me tickets because she was in town. I think she opened for Alan Jackson.
Probably, yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah.
Chuck hooked me up. So I remember flying up there on a weeknight to go see her. And did the meet and greet line or whatever. That's when I saw Troy Aikman. Big dude, by the way, bigger than you think.
Wow.
Because he like came out of the secret door or something. I don't know. At the time, he was,
he's like royalty.
This is heyday cowboy.
Right.
Super Bowl.
Yes.
Yeah.
93, 94, yeah.
He was an extremely big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And he came out of like he just appeared. It was the weirdest thing. But anyway, yeah, I saw him that night. But,
did you get to shake his hand, press the flesh and all that?
I think I did. Gave him the head nod. What's up, man?
Yeah. I met Reba McEntire once, and it was like meeting the Queen. I was, hi, Miss McEntire. And I was like, my brain was like, it's just shutting off all over the place. It was like she was headlining. Brooks and Dunn were the second on the bill. Sawyer Brown was third. One of the best concerts I've ever seen at the Oil Palace. It just was really, really awesome.
Cool.
Speaking, you both kind of had that experience. Like, Michael, you were kind of at that heyday of pop, you know, when you had all of your staff rocking and rolling, and it wasn't but maybe 6-7 years before that, Chuck's experiencing the same thing in country music.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was bananas.
McKinley was,
we
had like 22 share or something at that point. And I remember sitting in the office next door, like, dude, we're never going to get close to them.
This happened.
They have a 22. We have a 6.
I got to tell you something. In 90, it was like 96. I had to sub doing afternoons, and the book came out. Amy calls me. She goes, and we lost 6 points. And I go, so we have a 13? we had a 13. The next station was a 6. And I'm like, oh. And I think this is, of course, the Blaze hadn't been out. When the Blaze came out, that changed the radio.
It changed the landscape.
Yeah, entirely. I mean,
it did.
You could sit there and as a matter of fact, Michael, when you've been running your music as you've been running it, it reminded me, when the Blaze, and what did they do about a couple months where they ran that hour?
Yeah, it was like a 13 song mix that Luscious Ice put together. But were you still in town, or had you guys just left?
I was gone before.
That's what I thought.
Started.
Okay.
So we had our roll. We popped there at the end when I left. I started, mix was like sitting there at the 6 share. So we creeped up to a 14 by the time I left.
Yeah.
Which we had gotten hot with music, and we had our staff and all of our silly promotions and contests and flashback.
It was
Friday.
awesome. Yeah.
Oh no. Yeah. You guys were cooking big time.
Yeah.
So we had a nice little roll there and popped at the end. And then for me, I was like, it had been about 5 years at that point. And kind of like, to your point, Chuck, you're like, I'm not sure where we're going next. How much further can you take this? And I was ready to try something else. And I felt like we did what we could do with everything, and got an opportunity to move out to Los Angeles. So I did that. But the hamster wheel is the hardest part probably of radio. It's just, tomorrow's a new day. You got to keep going and keep it fresh. And that's the challenge.
Yeah. Well, my mornings were ruined when you moved to LA. So thank you. I had to find a new station. I did not like your replacement at all. It ruined it. I had a routine. I knew what was going on. I knew when the birthdays were. I was supposed to be on my way to school. Like, there was a whole habit based around listening to you in the morning. And then when you left, I was like, what's wrong? He's not on the air. Something's different.
Right.
And then I think I started listening to K94.5 because I grew up in Longview, so I could get the Shreveport signal. But
I got you.
Yeah, Robert,
we had fun.
And Aaron, I think. Yeah.
Their last couple of years were real fun. Larry was in there with me in the morning, and just, I started doing more and more as I was in there, and we had a lot of fun. It was a good time.
Well, everybody's personality really came through. Mornings, Mick had this thing going where Mick was just so relaxed. It was kind of like cool hipster, midday stuff. And I love hanging around Mick anyway. And then of course, Joey and Jake, man, I could listen to those two and go, especially Joey, and go, yeah, this guy's going somewhere.
Right. Yeah. We had some churn on the staff, and some people, we had moved some things around, and Jeff Evans had left and went to KTYL in the building. He went over there for an opportunity to kind of move up in management on that side. So we moved Mick from afternoons into midday and needed somebody for afternoons. And it was at that point, I knew a guy in Dallas at KISS, and we first found Jake to do nights. And then later we got Joey. We had then Larry, got all those three in, and they all landed in the spots they did, because Jake was actually going to school, which is why I don't think he did afternoons, because he was there first, and really I would have probably slid him just based on priority, kind of dibs.
Yeah,
yeah. There a little longer, but he was going to school, and he couldn't work during the day.
Yeah.
So he just stayed on at night and we moved Joey into afternoons, but it all worked out because he was a good fit there. He's funny, and we had a nice little lineup through the day, and then Jake did nights, and that's kind of how we rolled for a couple of years. But it worked because Mick was a little older than the rest of us, and so middays was a good spot for him.
Yeah.
And he liked his routine. You could set your watch by Mick, when Mick showed up, and that guy was on point. And then it was fun. We had a good little group, and Joey's now been in Oklahoma City doing mornings. I think he's the mayor at this point. God, he's been there 20 years, I think, almost.
Doing mornings at the same place?
Yeah, he's
No, that's a big deal, especially with the way radio moves, I'm telling you.
He's done very well there. Jake's been working. He went out to LA for a while, got into kind of the producer side for some big shows. He was in LA with Valentine, who's still out there, but then he ended up back with Craddock, producing the Craddock show. Okay. That's all, of course, on the morning at Mix. And then he's been there a long time. Still is. So
speaking of LA, when you went to Los Angeles, was that radio?
I went originally to work for a trade magazine, Network 40.
Okay, I remember that.
Industry trade magazine. So I had never done anything like that, and they just asked me to do it, and I was like, well, okay. So I had moments, believe me, when I was out there, I was like, what did you do? So, but did that for about a year and a half, and it was fun. Living out there at that time, LA was great.
Yeah.
It was a blast. And then I started doing weekends in San Diego for Clear Channel down there. And I would drive on the weekends to San Diego and work part-time, which I did for a while. And then that turned into a full-time job.
In San Diego. Neat.
Mm-hmm. And I moved down to San Diego and worked there for a couple of years. And then, of course, same old, staff changes. We're going to move and blah, blah, blah. And then was out there, but they said, sit tight. We think we got some stuff in the company. So, and they did. And I went up to Portland and programmed and managed a station up there for a while. Mm-hmm. This is in 2000, I guess. And actually, Larry came out there and worked with me in Portland for a year and a half. Mm-hmm. So we did that deal. And again, they changed the format after about a year and a half. And they changed it like 4 or 5 other times, like pretty much yearly. They changed it.
Oh, wow.
And they finally landed on classic rock and have been there for a while. But they changed that station almost every year for 5 years or something. It was like, guys, make up your mind. That's what companies do. And that's the frustrating part of it sometimes. Yeah. So because you feel like, what did I do? But you just got to realize it's not you. It's not you, it's them.
Well, and when it's not a radio person that owns it, right? Like they don't have any attachment to what's actually coming out of the speakers, the vibe, the community. Like I feel like that's one of the things that KNUE and Mix during those times you guys did really well is you knew who you were talking to and you were part of the community.
Right.
Like, it wasn't like you were just presenting on the air. You were talking to your friends and family. And we felt like your friends and family.
Yeah, that's the goal, what you're trying to achieve. And it takes a minute for that stuff for people to get to know you. And that's one of the frustrating things that, when they're so quick to pull the trigger on something. It's like you can tweak things. That's normal. And I'd made some mistakes up there probably, and we needed to make some adjustments, but I didn't feel like you needed to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but whatever.
Yeah.
Because you can adjust, and that's the goal, is to try to really get attached to a place and have people feel that way about you, and go from there.
Yeah.
So
you're going to operate out of Houston, or are you coming back up this direction?
No, our plan is I told everybody when I was up there last week, this whole thing is kind of like the 1.0 version.
Right. Yeah.
It's like there's 3 phases, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3.
Yep.
Like the software. Mm-hmm. And 1.0 was to just turn it on. Mm-hmm. Get the thing turned on after a year and a half, check
that box.
No, that's the longest part. The second thing is to try to, go out and get the word out and get a little business. So if you're out there, advertisers, try to, get some people on and help them. And we're going to have some good opportunities on that front. We feel like, and
Great.
get that part going. And then the third thing is we want to move and need to move. I feel like I need to be up there and be on the ground every day. So that's the plan. But you know how moving is. You got to sell a house.
It sucks. Moving sucks.
Yeah. I've moved a lot in my life. We haven't moved as much lately, but we counted once. I think it was 19 times we've moved.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Rosie and I had 10 moves before we ended up in Chandler in 97.
Right.
But it seemed like it took forever to settle down. I always tell the story when I was in Charleston, West Virginia. And my rule of thumb was if it didn't fit in the car, it didn't come with me at all. So in Charleston, West Virginia, I left a perfectly good vacuum cleaner because it's not fitting. I have my records that I've got that have to come with me, and my clothes, my VCR. But I'm sorry, vacuum cleaner, we don't need you because I never use you anyway unless I had a hot date at the time.
We'll get another one. That is the typical DJ life right there when you were starting out. That's exactly right. But yeah, we moved 19 times.
Wow.
And so we're going to have to do another one here soon because, we do need to be up there. In fact, my wife said this morning, when we move, this mattress is not coming because we need a new one.
Yeah.
So the only good part of that thing is the edge.
Look for an endorsement, man.
Yeah, so I'm like,
how I got my last two mattresses.
So yeah, that's kind of the first sort of 1.0 of this whole thing, and but there's a ton I've got planned and want to do a lot, and
well, I know you don't want to publicize your plans, so we won't ask you to do that. You got to keep some of that under the hat.
Some stuff we're going to roll it out here sooner than later. So
yeah.
Because I've just got sitting here and I'm like, you know what? I've kind of been back and forth on how long should I drag it out before I launch this sort of next feature, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just like, you know what? Just do it and go from there.
It sounds great.
We got the Yacht Rock lunch thing we're doing. So hopefully people find it fun. If you don't know what Yacht Rock is, it's kind of late 70s, early 80s, Christopher Cross, Toto, REO Speedwagon, Jackson Brown, Steely Dan, and the Doobie Brothers, that kind of era. There's a great documentary. If you have HBO Max, look up the Yacht Rock documentary on HBO Max. It is phenomenal.
Great.
And it explains the whole thing and why it's called that now and how they, where that's come from. But there's a ton of artist interviews in it and it's great. And that'll give you your Yacht Rock education. So if you're, wondering what the heck that is. So, but it's fun doing that. And then a lot of other stuff we got coming. So.
Well, we're excited. I mean, we text each other on a regular basis anyway, but probably 3 or 4 times a week, we're texting each other about what we're hearing on your station.
Like, oh, nice.
Yeah.
What?
Like, did you just hear like Billie Jean back to back with, I don't remember what, but it was something I was like, whoa, that really worked. Anyway.
No. And I think when I first started texting you, Michael, when I heard it was some Saturday and I heard Gordon Lightfoot and Sundown, I go, what the hell? What is going on here? Because it was something from the 90s. I don't even think you were doing jingles then. And it went into Gordon Lightfoot and then something that I could only describe as if you had like some sort of alternative song, but it was like its acoustic version. And I'm sitting there listening and I'm just going, it's kind of like when my dog is like staring at a bug and like looking at things going, what is going on here? And I told Mandee this morning, I said, I'd probably kill a person to get a look at the database. I would, because I love databases. I think, and I don't have to tell you, Michael, the ideal database is whatever sound you want to make the mathematics work out. So everything, merges together and man, when it works, it's beautiful. I mean, when I was at the
there's stuff. I say this, it's definitely still a work in progress. There's things I hear go, ooh, I need to fix that, or maybe that needs to go, or I need to move that, or put a day part on that, whatever.
I was going to ask you about day parting specifically because I feel like I'm hearing it. Are you a little bit more current in the afternoons?
Maybe.
Okay.
A little bit.
Maybe I'm hearing it in comparison to, I may be comparing it to Yacht Rock because when I'm in the cars in the morning, when I'm driving to work, I'm usually driving around at lunchtime, and then in the afternoon, 4 to 6 sometimes, right? So what I'm probably comparing it to is listening at lunch and then hearing that may be what it is. But I was thinking about it because Chuck used to tell me the first stations he worked on was pretty heavily day parted in the 70s. And I thought, oh, that would be interesting if that's what you're doing now, kind of playing with the sound and having it more up tempo in the afternoon or more current in the afternoon than.
I've done a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I've tried to not go crazy, but at the same time, there's some stuff I'm like, I don't know if I want to hear that at 9 a.m. Maybe we'll save that for 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yes.
So it's just kind of a feel. There's no science to that part of it.
Well, I'm probably listening more closely than the average person because I did work music logs at Sunny, and I was thinking about all of those things, like what's happening in the office. Is this something somebody would listen to while they're working versus they're driving home and they're rolling the windows down and they're having a good time? Right.
Yeah. There's definitely that vibe, and we definitely want to be a workplace type station. Yeah. As much as possible. I know a lot of workplaces now, they use services and different things. That kind of has become a bigger deal, but
we can listen online.
Yes. And we're online right now, greatfm.com. You can stream it. Mobile apps are coming. If Apple would get it in gear, let's go Apple.
Come on, Apple. You heard the man. Get it.
Approve the application. Let's go. You're the last thing I'm waiting on. And then we'll have mobile apps and an Alexa skill, as they call it.
Cool.
Hey, Alexa. So that's all coming. That's sort of the 1.0 plan. We got the website up, so I need to do some stuff there. But now we're out pounding the pavement and trying to say hello to people, get reacquainted. I was up last week running around and reintroduced myself to some people, whether they liked it or not.
That's part of it.
I thought you were gone.
Yeah.
So
how do you mean gone? I don't know if are you stepping on the word gone a little bit too hard? Come on.
Right. So, well, back then, younger, a little, a bit more of a punk, I guess. Probably some people were like, get them out of here. But it's been a minute. So we're all grown and older and,
wiser, I think.
Wiser. Yes. My daughter is not quite the age I was when I started working at that station. Wow. So she's in college and which is hard to believe. But
they grow up.
Yes, they do. It goes quick, way too quick.
What does she think about all this? Is she having fun with it?
She's excited about it. Yeah, she's in college. She plays volleyball.
Oh,
college
awesome.
At East Texas A&M. They call it now Commerce.
Commerce. Yep.
Yes. So she's there playing volleyball. That's what we did for the whole time. We were those people that went all over the country to volleyball tournaments.
Yep. Okay.
That's all I did for about 10 years.
So.
USVBA.
Yes, we've been to every convention center in the country to a volleyball tournament. Trust me.
Cool.
But it was a blast, and she's doing that. So she had the opportunity to go there and play, which she's having a great time and doing that stuff. But she's looking forward to it. She thinks I mess with her. She thinks she wants to work in the music business.
Really?
Yeah. So
what sort of like promo or something?
She loves music. She's she's pretty eclectic, but. I always joke, if she was a 90s kid, she'd have probably been listening to The Edge in Dallas.
Oh, yeah, that's such a great station. I missed that station.
She loves that kind of stuff, but she also likes some pop stuff too, and even older stuff. She does, but she loves music and wants to work on that side, kind of on the artist side. So it's like, well, we'll see how that goes because that world's changed too dramatically.
Gosh.
In alignment with radio. I have a friend that was a record rep that used to come around and visit us. Visit Larry. I would just happen to be in the office and connected with her because we're about the same age and we happen to share the same birthday. And so we've stayed in touch, but she's out of the business now too. She worked for Atlantic for a while and she's the reason I had an opportunity to meet Ed Sheeran. And kind of like you guys, that was a big, big moment for me. I was like, is this really happening? But Allison made it happen because she liked me for some reason. And I already had tickets to the show. She was like, I can get you on that list. Yeah. I was like, all right. This is how
I've
it
got
works.
some of those contacts too. And it's funny. They've all left the pop world. Yeah. Almost all of them. And they're all now doing country.
Well, that's because the growth is there.
Rock and top 40 and alternative and hip hop. Now they're all in country. It's pretty funny.
Well, I remember in the mid 90s, country exploded and the labels exploded. There was one time there was like 25 labels. I mean, legitimate labels. Yeah. And there was a time I was gunning for a promo job and almost had it, but one thing led to another and it just wasn't there. I ended up finding out, making the call. Hi, this is Chuck McKinley. I'm supposed to have a secondary job. We don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, oh, well, but I was glad, I was glad it didn't work because the country labels mirrored what was happening in radio, which is within 5-6 years. Everything was down to about your 4 or 5 major labels. And that's it,
Yeah.
Right.
As far as work on that goes. So,
and that's kind of what I've told my daughter. I'm like, that world's a lot different. So just keep your options open. But in the meantime, we're doing this, which she likes a lot. I've already told her you're going to have to help me with Instagram because that's, you talk about a hamster wheel of keeping things updated. And I'm, looking around. I'm like, where do you go? How do I get this? So I'm like, I have other stuff to do. You're on Instagram all day. So I've told her you're going to have to help me out when you get a minute. So the social media parts, that's a handful.
Social media director. That's her title.
There you go.
She'll get that whether she wants it or not.
But, I feel like that's the position that you have to start with now in radio. Like when you started in promotions, like that's the entry level position now because most of the people that have been jocks for a while have adopted it late. It's not as familiar. We're more worried about what's coming out of the speakers, but it's all important.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Social media is a thing and it just is. You can like it or not like it. I don't necessarily love that part of it, but it is definitely a thing you've got to deal with and plan for, which I am. But that's a different animal for sure.
Yeah.
Because there's using it. And then there's using it like as a user, just looking at it on your personally, but then there's
branding,
using it for your business and the algorithm and when to post and what times of the day and what content gets the best response. It's a little bit like programming, your own station anyway.
Yeah.
So there's the science part of it versus just the fun part of it.
Yeah.
And, that's a whole other animal to learn because they can change that algorithm whenever they want.
Yeah.
And they do. Affect your reach. And yes, absolutely they do. Oh. So that's its own thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what if we missed, Michael? We're both just super excited. As we've mentioned, we've been texting each other constantly. I had lunch with Larry yesterday and a couple of other radio guys. Kenny Smith invited me to go have pizza with them. And we were all excited for you and chatting about it. And we're just really excited for you and glad to have you back on the air in East Texas.
No, I appreciate it. I'm doing some stuff. I've recorded some things. Somebody asked me the other day, like, when are you going to be on the air? I'm like, I don't know, man. Let me get some of this other stuff done. I got to kind of ramp this thing up. Yeah. And because that's a commitment. And when you make that commitment to be on every day, that's its own animal. So, but we'll get there at some point here, hopefully sooner than later.
Well, you have morning experience, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, but I think I'm going to delegate that one to somebody.
Yeah,
huh?
Yeah, some days, maybe so.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff we want to do and get to that hopefully will be soon. So I've got some other features we're going to roll out here very soon. I'll let y'all know.
Great.
You'll hear pretty quick. Plus, I need Chucks to give me a little wisdom because, he likes to drop some database, stuff on me. Which is good because sometimes I'm like, I don't know.
Well,
I can get a little weird and kind of squirrel, as my wife says. I'm looking at this and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, this will be cool, really. She'll look at me and go, no.
I have it to where Rosie can listen to stations over a couple of days and she'll say, their rotations are off. And what are you talking about? When Jack came on, Jack FM, their rotations are off. Because she could listen to, like, the ranch. She goes, your rotations are perfect. And I go, well, you're sleeping with a program director, so that's kind of a thing, too, dear. She goes, nope. It wouldn't matter. I said, okay, I'll buy it, Rosanna. But yeah, sometimes it's, all laughing aside, you have that impartial, almost a single focus group that you are married to that can give you maybe some advice. Maybe it's, not impartial, but it's something you might go, okay, maybe I need to consider that.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, people have said something or they'll throw out something. My wife loves old country, like 70s.
So do we.
Yeah.
Late 60s, 70s,
Yeah. Yep.
early 80s country.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
She had a streaming channel on in the living room the other day, and, Conway Twitty
Yep.
was on. And I'm like, I don't think I can play Conway Twitty, but that's a good song. That's a great song.
Yeah.
We do have like the Bellamy Brothers on the Yacht Rock list.
Oh, that makes sense.
Well, Let Your Love Flow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let Your Love Flow. That's a great song.
Yes, it is.
I made a note the other day. I heard, what was it? I made this note. I'm like, I don't have that song. I need to put it in. Lovely Day by Bill Withers.
Oh, yeah.
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 Great song.
Yeah.
So I got to get that one in there. Well, I think we have another one of his, but I'm like, I don't think I have Lovely Day.
Yeah.
Because you'll just miss something, with everything you've gone through. But
Well, and there's
stuff
so
will
many
pop up.
hits to choose from because you're covering such a wide
Right.
range of music. It's deep
Yeah.
and wide. I mean, you've just
It
got
is.
hits on hits.
And it's tricky sometimes to juggle that volume.
Yes.
I was in top 40. I don't know if people, how many people realize this. We might have played 150 songs.
Yeah.
That's it. So that's your library.
Yep.
This one, times 10.
Right.
And
Yep.
so managing that amount and volume of music.
Good,
can
by
be
the way.
tricky, but because, it's just a lot more to get on. So trying to juggle that, and it's its own animal.
Yeah.
I know
Sure.
when I was at the ranch, I had this weird rule of thumb for my oldies rotations when I was setting up power rotations for any of my gold categories. And I thought, okay, in top 40, my power golds would turn over at 30 hours. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to make it 60 hours. That's what I'm going to do. And then I would build everything. I would have like 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s, and I'd have three categories with subcategories to work it. So I didn't want it to where I didn't care if they I didn't want them to hear it too much. I didn't want to have memory burn. You know what I mean? On stuff. So, and I think that, for the most part, I didn't have a lot of glitches in the beginning. There was a couple times where, software would do stuff. Like I remember seeing Little Green Apples for some reason, O.C. Smith come up in the morning at like 5:15, 4 mornings in a row. And I'm going,
That's
well,
not
this
right.
is interesting. And a couple other things. It was enough of stuff where I had to sit there and get the music master book on a Saturday so I could be alone and sit down at the office and go, okay, what am I missing? And then, looked at rules and revised things and ran some fake data and go, okay, I think we're fine now. So, but yeah, sometimes databases are frustrating and sometimes you love it. And, that's kind of how I looked at the whole thing. And it was a great adventure as far as programming the ranch. The only time I've ever programmed, but I had great people. I had this one as my APD, and she was just terrific, and we worked well together.
Well, thanks. I didn't know anything about music programming other than making Apple playlists at the time. That was the extent of it. And then listening, I was a pretty heavy radio listener as a young person. I have so many recordings. I have a cassette somewhere of you and Larry.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's fun. It's like
You
little
probably
pieces.
have more than I still have.
It's possible. But I have little pieces of like y'all introing my favorite song at the time or whatever. And it's just a mixtape of radio.
That's funny.
It is funny. I've gone back and listened to it a few times and it brings back a lot of really good memories. It's a trip, but I listened all the time. And I mean, I didn't go out and buy cassettes. We couldn't just download songs to our phones. That didn't exist. So I'd stick my cassette in my boombox and hit record as I'm hearing you introduce NSYNC or whatever it is that I, liked at the time. And then I had it so I could run it back and listen to it as many times as I wanted,
Right.
That was what we did back then.
That's right. Now, I was telling somebody here the other day, I didn't have a computer at that job and when I was running that station at Mix, because the internet wasn't invented.
Right.
Talk about sounding old. The internet had not been invented yet.
Yeah.
So I had a typewriter on my desk that we typed, labels for the carts in the studio or typed up other stuff for the office or whatever, because I didn't have, and then I finally got my own personal little laptop. And I got this adapter thing from somebody in the building. I think Harry Clark gave it to me, that I could dial up internet and download my email. And I created an AOL email for the station, or for me for the station. And I still have that email.
Wow.
I think I'm the last guy in the world with an AOL email. And that's what I would give out on the air. And I'd come in every day. I was back when email first started and all the forwards, everybody would forward jokes. And I would come in and have hundreds of emails from people forwarding me stuff.
Yeah.
And I would try to find stuff and print them out.
Yeah.
But that was it. There was no internet yet in the studio anywhere. And that's how we did it. So look back on that, and it's funny just to say, the internet hadn't been invented yet.
But it hadn't.
Nope, it hadn't. And really didn't start till I left, actually. Towards the tail end, we did launch the first Mix website. There at the very end, mix1073.com. We had that domain name, and then they lost it.
Really?
To the one in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
But we had that domain name originally. And I think somebody didn't re-up it. And then they had to change it and put an FM on it or something. I don't know. But yeah, true story. We had the first one.
Very cool.
Remember on your music database software, Michael, you would have to, and they would stress, you have to back it up every day and on the weekends. And you had to have a copy with you in case the station burned down.
Right. On the little floppy disk. Floppies. Yes.
Because if the station burned down, that's one thing. But holy Christ, if you got to recreate your database,
that is, talk about not fun. Oh, that's not fun.
I only had it once. I was sitting there one night and the blue screen of death comes up with this like spider web thing. And so I call a selector and I go, okay, here's the deal. It's a blue screen with like a spider web. This is pretty bad, right? And they go, yes, it is.
Right. We had, people that don't know that database thing, especially back then, everything was manually entered. Just the time it took to build all that and do the data entry and just keying in everything one at a time. If that went down or crashed, not fun to have to recreate all that.
Like you're doing with Great FM, though, you're building that from the ground up, kind of the same animal, right?
It is somewhat of the same animal, and there's been a lot of that. My wife has helped do some of the just tedious data entry part, because I've got 18,000 songs or more that I've just, over the years accumulated and have, begged, borrowed, and stole. And,
absolutely.
Friends in low places send me and, things like that. So
when I was getting into the mobile DJ business, what was the TM Century stuff that you guys had? I was getting the stuff that you guys didn't want for my DJ service. I'd talk to you and Mick, can I have that? You'd hand it over. It was great.
So
I lost it on fire.
But slogging through 18,000 songs to find, the ones you want and duplicate versions. And there's an album version and there's a radio edit. And then there's, an acoustic version. And then some stuff's got language in it. And it's the, clean version. Just going through all of it has taken a long time.
Sure.
And having to do that again would be brutal. Yeah. Absolutely brutal. So we back up every month.
Backups are important.
Great FM 1.0 is up, huh?
Great FM 95.1 Great FM is officially out. The 1.0 version.
Yes.
So, greatfm.com, streaming now.
Cool. Michael Storm, it is so wonderful having you on the Unknown Morning Show. We've been talking about it for a long time. Mandee and I were talking about it even before, we had heard about your ownership of the station. We were excited to get you in, and we're so pleased that you took time to be with us today.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. It was fun.
This has been another episode of The Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
This is our show to explore radio,
podcasting,
gear,
and the gearheads that use the gear,
and making money with a hot mic,
and other stuff in between.
We'd love for you to follow us on social media as well. Follow us on Facebook at The Unknown Morning Show and Instagram at The Unknown Morning Show. See us on YouTube at The Unknown Morning Show.
Thank you for listening to The Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandee Montana.
I'm Chuck McKinley. And remember, be kind and rewind.